That video is from an Iowa State trooper pulling someone over on Highway 218 near Interstate 80 when a vehicle, as you see there, just smacks into the side of the car. It was a close call that first responders say is happening too often.
The Iowa State Patrol reports both drivers in that crash were not badly hurt. That's the good news. The trooper wasn't hurt either. KCRG TV9's Brian Tabak is live tonight with more on just what happened.
Living on this road is scary. It's definitely very scary.
Something needs to change. That's what neighbors are saying after a fatal crash on Williams Boulevard Southwest in Cedar Rapids. Now, 2 people died in a recent crash. 3 people have serious injuries after a collision around 3 Sunday morning. Police say a car heading east on Williams Boulevard spun out of control and hit an SUV going in the opposite direction. The 2 people in the car, they died. They were 23 and 29 years old. Again, this crash happened in the 2100 block of Williams Boulevard Southwest. We're going to zoom in and show you the portion of Williams Boulevard that people say they're concerned about. It's right here after it turns from First Avenue into Williams Boulevard, sort of near where you turn into Jefferson High School. They say there have been crashes here and people just go way too fast. And that's also where KCRG TV9's Molly Swain joins us live. Molly?
It needs to be fixed because there is no end game.
It's unsustainable, and it's frankly a humanitarian disaster as well.
We have done all we can with the resources that we have and within the system that we are operating under.
Well, you heard that, a broken immigration process, a humanitarian disaster. That's how some describe the U.S.-Mexico border situation just hours before the end of a policy enacted at the height of the COVID pandemic. In less than 2 hours, the policy known as Title 42 will expire. This Trump-era policy let U.S. officials turn away migrants at the southern border, all in order to stop the spread of COVID-19. But as the public health emergency expires, so does the policy.
Highlights End Zone. What a matchup tonight at Cascade. The Cougars hosted #1 ranked Dyersville Beckman. Jack Leto has more from Cascade.
When you take exit 75 off of 151.
Jack Leto joins me now. And Jack, you had a great matchup tonight. Williamsburg was loaded this year against Regina, and you know that's going to be a good one when you mention those 2 teams.
Yeah, my first time at Williamsburg, they really know how to make it an event. They took out the grill, and there was nothing like a week 1 loud student section. Williamsburg went to the Dome last year. Regina came up just short.
Welcome back to a special Dallas edition of On Iowa Live. And Chelsea, I was so happy for Lisa and her coaching staff to get to a Final Four. They really deserved it.
Absolutely. I mean, I think personally Lisa leads the ultimate girl gang, and she's been with some of her coaches for decades, so this was truly a special moment for them.
Today, the 2 teenagers charged with killing a Fairfield Spanish teacher admitted to the crime.
Both Willard Miller and Jeremy Goodale pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in the death of Noema Graver. And coming up, we'll have coverage of today's court proceedings where both teens admit to the death and what the punishment they may face.
Also first at 4, people are coming together tonight to look for a missing 20-year-old Muscatine man last seen in Iowa City. And we learn more about his disappearance.
The Iowa Senate debated into the early hours of today about what restrictions teenagers face in the workforce and what they should and should not be allowed to do.
The city of Marion is moving ahead with a measure to install traffic cameras, but members say there's still a whole lot of questions.
And after growing a need of years of anticipation, the Coralville Food Pantry is finally open.
The University of Iowa is entering the metaverse. Coming up, I'll explain what this new virtual reality campus looks like and how professors plan to use it.
Back here on Real Earth, temperatures reached the low to mid 50s across eastern Iowa today. A little bit below normal, but we are going to add about 20 to 25 degrees to this through the week. We'll show you how warm it gets in your first alert forecast coming up.
So the only thing that has changed is we finally have a format that has proven to work years in the past.
For the first time since starting negotiations, congressional leaders express optimism about reaching a deal on the debt limit, but time is not on their side. Some rural postal workers are seeing a big cut in pay, but more work. We'll look at the new Postal Service pay system and its impact on Iowa mail carriers. And police identify the 18-year-old gunman behind a New Mexico mass shooting, but why he pulled the trigger remains a mystery. Good evening and welcome to tonight's debate for Iowa's 2nd Congressional District. You know, Iowa's 4 congressional districts were actually redrawn after the 2020 census to better reflect population shifts in the state. The new 2nd district looks a lot like the current 1st district. It covers northeast Iowa, including the cities of Cedar Rapids, Waterloo, Dubuque, and Mason City as well. I'm Jim Mertens with KCRG TV9 in Cedar Rapids, and joining me in moderating tonight's debate is Alex Sachs of KCCI in Des Moines and Aaron Gutierrez of KWQC-TV in the Quad Cities. So now let's meet the 2 candidates.
Liz Mathis is a third-term Iowa State Senator from Hiawatha, a former journalist, including as an anchor at KCRG-TV9. She later worked for Horizons and Four Oaks nonprofit organizations. She was born in DeWitt, Iowa, and is a University of Iowa graduate.
The incumbent is U.S. Representative Ashley Hinson, who is seeking her 2nd term in Congress. She lives in Marion as a former journalist working as an anchor at KCRG-TV9 and a 2-term state representative. She was born in Des Moines and is a graduate of the University of Southern California.
We're going to begin with our first question. We're going to get right into it, and Liz Mathis, you are first.
President Biden temporarily lifted seasonal restrictions on E15 fuels. However, gas prices continue to be an issue for Iowans. Biofuel advocates have called on the permanent lifting of summer restrictions on E15 fuels. Liz Mathis, you will get 1 minute to respond to this question. What can you do in Congress to ensure this fuel source, which Iowa is the leading producer of in the country, is first in mind when fighting the energy crisis?
I think we were all cheering very loudly. You could have heard us in Washington, I'm sure, that E15 was passed for, the whole country. That's terrific news, certainly, for all of us. And
good evening. Ballot counting long underway. We have teams following campaigns across the state on this election night 2022.
And that includes races on all levels, the county, the state, and local, federal levels as well.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest numbers and results coming into our newsroom on this night.
And that first race we're taking a look at for Iowa governor. The first race called in Iowa for the evening for the incumbent Republican Kim Reynolds, out in front against Cedar Rapids and the Libertarian Rick Stewart.
Second race that was called was for the U.S. Senate. Chuck Grassley winning another term, defeating Admiral Michael Franken, 55% to 45%.
A disappointing night, though, for Cedar Rapids, the Democrat running for governor in the state of Iowa. We understand she is about to take the stage there in Des Moines. Let's listen in.
This campaign cycle for this specific campaign, we came up short with the numbers.
Well, the balance of power on Capitol Hill could be changing tonight. All across the country, people casting their ballots in the midterm elections. Democrats currently hold control of the House and the Senate, basically a tie. Republicans looking to change that right now. And 4 lawmakers serve Iowa on Capitol Hill, and all 4 of them, as you know, running for re-election in the House.
That includes Republican Representative Ashley Hinson, her Democratic challenger Liz Mathis, watching those results come in tonight. And Ashley Hinson has really pulled out ahead of Mathis. They are running, obviously, in the 2nd Congressional District. And as you can see, with about 65% of the vote in Hinson, with 56% over Mathis, 44%.
And we want to check in with KCRG TV9's Kristen Rogers, who's live at the Mathis watch party. It is in Marion right now. Kristen?
From your trusted local news source with your first alert forecast, KCRG TV9 News at 10 starts now.
Tonight, people are looking to recover after several tornadoes struck eastern Iowa. We have First Alert Storm Team coverage, but first, take a look at this. You are looking at video from our Solon City Cam as it captured live pictures of what appears to be a tornado ripping through the city. And tonight, residents in Solon aren't the only ones picking up the pieces.
Delaware County opened a shelter earlier tonight. It was open for a few hours due to the storm damage in Manchester for people to seek refuge. There's also a shelter open in the community of Hills. It's at the community center south of Iowa City, again because of storm damage. The storms devastated people's homes and businesses there in Hills. And this is video as a tornado approached Wellman. You can see it spinning off in the distance as large tornadoes on the ground there. We've taken reports from viewers of damage southwest of Wellman, where homes were destroyed.
Seeing it over and over again, and more than 26,000 people across the state of Iowa right now have no power. The vast majority of those are in eastern Iowa, Grundy, Delaware, Van Buren counties having the most outages compared to other nearby counties after this storm. Now, Johnson County's emergency management says it is responding to the damage caused by all these tornadoes today.
And we're starting our coverage in Johnson County in the community of Solon, where KCRG TV9's Becky Phelps joins us live. Becky?
Thankfully, no one was injured when this tree behind me fell and hit a home during today's storms in Solon. The family who lives in this home tells me they were in the cellar during all of the storms and couldn't tell what had happened until they came up and looked around. Now the tree was ripped up by its roots and fell into the side of the house here, hitting into the garage and kind of cutting through the side of the house here. You can see the view from inside. Earlier today, branches just hanging into the garage, insulation everywhere, covering the floor, the cars in the driveway. The storm also sucked the garage door off of the house, leaving it sitting in the front yard. Everyone I've talked to today in Solon says the storm felt like it moved through quickly. I talked with one woman who rode out the storm with her father in his basement before coming home and seeing what her neighborhood looked like.
After the storm was over, I went to walk home and I saw a big pile of cedar trees, and I was like, well, those must have come off of the other neighbor's tree, and lo and behold, I get to my house and I find out that it had just fallen behind my bus and did not hit the bus, but they were actually my trees that the limbs had been pulled.
In downtown Solon, two businesses, a hardware store and a Mexican restaurant, had significant damage to their roofs, with parts literally flying away. Those businesses are blocked off by caution tape tonight. Part of the debris landed behind the businesses, and the work to clean all of that damage up got started very quickly. City crews and first responders were all across Solon today working very hard to help people identify the damage and clean up tree debris off of roads and sidewalks. Everyone we talked to said they were very grateful to live here in this community with that support. Live in Solon, Becky Phelps, KCRG TV9 News.
And this is drone video from Tipton in Cedar County. You can see some damage to homes and trees in this particular neighborhood. Some homes even had part of their roofs that were torn off. The good news is that time and time we have not heard of any serious injuries, and that's a key part to this story.
Yeah, and no fatalities. Given how many tornadoes were pushing through eastern Iowa one time, we know that can happen. So in the community of Hills, an emergency shelter has been set up for families who have nowhere else to go. That's where we find KCRG TV9's Brian Tabak reporting for us live. Brian?
Yeah, Beth, not a lot of families utilizing the community center, though. The mayor does tell me there are a couple dozen people whose homes are uninhabitable tonight. In the town of Hills, just off Old 218, families are in cleanup mode after the storm left debris thrown across yards, insulation covering lawns, and twisted metal siding thrown across structures.
It's heartbreaking, but stuff's replaceable and everybody's healthy, and so that's what's great.
Kyle Schneider was at his father's house when the storm rolled through. This is what he came home to. A wall torn from the side of his house.
Oh, you can't live in that thing. The structure's not stable underneath that house, so.
Schneider's home is too damaged to live in tonight. His plan is to take his family to his father's. Others walked the block looking for irreplaceable memories.
There's so much of pictures of families and all their belongings.
They're our friends. Some of them are her grandson, and some of from her in high school. So they're pretty important.
The damage from this storm is fresh in the minds of those like Schneider who live here, but they're just thankful for friends and family ready to help a lending hand in his family's time of need.
When you see your house damaged and stuff, and they're the first ones there when you call.
The mayor of Hills tells me that he has requested some extra Johnson County Sheriff's deputies to kind of watch over that area just off that old 218 cleanup. That starts tomorrow. The mayor tells me that they've requested dumpsters and dump trucks. They're still working on a plan of where they're going to put those at this time. Live in Hills, Brian Tabak, KCRG TV9 News.
All right, thank you, Brian. Delaware County Emergency Management opened a shelter for a few hours this evening due to storm damage. It is now closed, though. Emergency Management says a suspected tornado caused extensive damage throughout Manchester. Ken Gracie sent us these photos after waiting out the storm at a gas station in Manchester, and he says winds threw barns into ditches and destroyed sheds and power poles.
Well, you can hear them just snapping. It just sounds like a twig, you know, just like if you took a twig and just snapped it across your nail, it was snap, snap, snap. And next thing you know, all those power lines just went down.
He says he saw power poles down for more than a quarter of a mile. Delaware County Emergency Management saying as of this time, there are no reported injuries there. Our first alert weather coverage continues in Coralville tonight. Many businesses, hotels, and homes along Highway 6 are still without power right now.
Yeah, right there on the Coralville Strip. KCRG TV9's Libby Randall continues our live team coverage. She shares more from two business owners who were just yards away from the most severe damage.
Along Highway 6 in Coralville, many businesses like the ones behind me are seemingly untouched. But if you take several steps in the opposite direction, you can see how much damage this storm really did. A tornado split this group of businesses along Highway 6 in half as it made its way through Coralville. Debris from some of those places are strung out across the street. Power lines and power poles cover the train tracks that run alongside US 6. The owners of Miro, Martial Arts, and Accurate Home Inspections, both located in that same building, are beyond relieved, as the only thing they lost was power.
I just closed on the business on Monday, and so I just bought it. So yeah, I mean, I've been here 15 years, and it's just like I'm looking at the devastation of other businesses, and I'm feeling like really, really blessed.
I wasn't sure what to expect with that tornado that touched down. I thought maybe it was going to be a lot more disastrous than what it is right now. I do feel for this side of the building, though, the owners over here, though, with the damage they have.
Several of those business owners tell us the Iowa Department of Transportation, Coralville Law Enforcement, and Mid-American Energy crews are working to bring back power as early as Saturday morning. In Coralville, Libby Randall, KCRG TV9 News.
And just about an hour ago, a shelter opened in Coralville. The Red Cross is operating that shelter at the Coralville Recreation Center that's on 8th Street. And there will be cots, blankets, as well as food for anyone who needs it from the storm. And once those storms passed, it was almost eerily calm. We even saw rainbows and blue skies in some areas.
And it was absolutely amazing how quickly those storms did pass through. I mean, you saw the video in Seoul, and it was like, what, 90 seconds of intensity.
If that. Yeah, absolutely. Luckily, they did move on quickly between about 2 and 7. That's about what you were expecting from the western edge of the viewing area to the eastern. Now they're long gone. Let's look at a review of what happened this afternoon on pinpoint Doppler radar. See, starting at about 1 o'clock as it loops back. Storms developed in south central Iowa, spread to the northeast. That was the first wave, and a second wave developed on its backside, pushing to the northeast from there. They continue to push east now. In fact, the front and its associated storms in central Indiana. That one storm that passed from near Ottumwa up through Johnson County into southeastern Lynn and western Jones County, that's the one that produced the most serious tornadoes we saw all day. In fact, here's a radar representation of where the rotation passed. So that's a generic path of where what may have very well been one tornado for a good portion of it before lifting and probably producing a couple more before that storm started to get absorbed into the greater line. So it was a pretty active afternoon. In fact, as you see all those tornado reports associated with that storm stretching from Wapello County up into northern Washington County, other reports in Poweshiek County, and plenty of reports across all of the state of Iowa, at least 178 at latest count, and we will still add some more to this. Good news is now is that things have quieted down, at least in terms of the weather and precipitation and storm activity. Winds are still very strong, gusting out of the west between 31 miles per hour and Dubuque, 14 miles per hour in Washington. We're going to keep those strong westerly winds around for at least a little bit longer. Temperatures tonight will be dipping into the low to mid 30s. You can scratch those scattered storms for the Zonecast, though. Instead, we have the potential for scattered snow showers. We'll take a look at who's most in line to see some snow overnight coming up in a bit.
Well, as you've seen, there's been plenty of activity going on here through the afternoon. Let's take a look at more of some of those damage photos that you guys have sent in. Thank you for sending those in on our U News channel there. Again, some storm damage in Manchester. We've seen that picture, several of pictures coming in from the Manchester area for us here as we've gone through the afternoon with that cell up there. Also, wind damage coming in. Julia sent in this picture near the Wellsburg area. Probably not associated with any tornadic activity, but just wind damage in that grain bin being blown over and kind of collapsing in on itself. Near the Martinsburg area, this kind of as that storm was just getting going, you can see that hog confinement, substantial damage to that. That picture sent in by Lori. Trevor sent in this picture from the Wellman area. Again, a lot of damage in the Wellman area. Those trees, those cars kind of crumpled up. A classic signature there that we'd see. That tornado video coming in near Wellman as well from Richard. Again, very powerful storm. And another tornado video coming in near Kyoto where you can see both of those tornadoes moving through the area. Tipton as well, seeing a lot of damage. Remember, you can still send in your pictures to us on kcrg.com/unews.
Jan, thanks so much. And parts of Arkansas saw storms earlier than Iowa did today. This is a look, a video at a pretty substantial tornado in Little Rock that killed 3 people and hurt dozens others. The National Weather Service called it catastrophic and had to send its own North Little Rock staff into a tornado shelter.
Everything happened in like 5 seconds. It was like it came, boom. It was you hear a lot of commotion and stuff. Then it was just over.
A man describing in Little Rock what happened today with that storm. This is damage from the tornado. You can see debris scattered and buildings heavily damaged in this video. The tornado even ripped off the roofs of some businesses.
Also tonight, right now, the Iowa women are going head-to-head with South Carolina in their Final Four matchup for the NCAA tournament. Tip-off is at 8:50 tonight, and the score right now, 59-55. Good guys, right? KCRG TV9 Scott Zabel and Jack Lido are in Dallas tonight with more on the big matchup, guys.
Welcome to Dallas, and what a game so far. The Hawkeyes giving the #1 team in the country all they can handle. They got off to a great start, Jack.
Yeah, they did, and as a Hawkeye fan, if you're a Hawkeye fan, you got to be really nervous. Look, it's great that the Hawkeyes got off to a great start. They played their game on offense. That means pick and roll with Caitlin Clark and Monica Zanano. Been great passing, great shooting. The problem for Iowa is on the defensive end. They're just giving up too many offensive rebounds.
It's rebounding. That's going to continue to be a problem, so they're probably going to have to outscore them. It worked, the layup drill, and it was a layup drill for Caitlin Clark in the first half, but I think they're going to adjust their defense, and she's going to have to hit some more threes, and other players for Iowa are going to have to hit from the outside.
It's going to be huge to draw up those plays to get those open shooters shots. For my money, Dawn Staley is the best coach in college basketball. Lisa Bluter is right up there with her. If Lisa Bluter can draw up a game plan to get the Hawks in front, get them open shooters, I think she might take that crown. It's going to be a great ending.
And how about the crowd support? A lot of Iowa fans.
A lot of Iowa fans. Exactly.
Awesome.
We've seen them all week. They've been incredible. If the Iowa Hawkeyes win the game, it's going to be largely thanks to the home-like crowd that they've gotten.
All right, let's hope for a big second half from Iowa. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks so much. Well, coming up, President Donald Trump says he will be turning himself into authorities to make his first court appearance as he reportedly now faces dozens of criminal charges.
The severe weather we saw earlier today now pushing into Indiana and Ohio. Blizzard warnings off to the northwest side of this large storm system as it exits. We'll show you when the snow can move through eastern Iowa coming up in your first alert forecast. Stay with your trusted local news source, KCRG TV9.